know that this could be Grace's banner Sunday? This is a picture of your website, and up in the top left is your logo. Grace United, transforming lives. Transformation Sunday, transforming lives. It's not all there is in your vision statement. When you look at your information from your annual report for your AGM today, very appropriate to have your AGM on a day like today. It's not only transforming lives, but it's transforming lives through faithful discipleship. And from that comes priorities, objectives, and strategies, values that create a vision for your church. One of the reasons why I decided to go with the epistle reading with Peter and Peter's exclamation and eyewitness statement of what happened with the transformation and not with Moses was because I kind of wanted to look at what happened to Peter. What happened to Peter when Peter said, "Wow, Jesus, I'm going to build you and Moses and Elijah a sheltering place." That imperative that rose in him at the vision of something inexpressible. We have lots of relationships between visions and interpretations and things that lead to actions. Your vision leads to actions within your congregation. It guides your decision making. This affirms Jesus' divinity, but on the other hand, it begins to give a deep explanation to those disciples who need eyes to see God's light in the chaos to come, that is Lent. In Epiphany, we started out with the light of the Magi leading the way. And then we moved into the light of the baptism, with Jesus getting baptized and a dove coming down and God's voice saying, "This is my beloved with whom I am well pleased." And now we have another voice in a cloud on a mountain. It's just a little different. "This is my beloved with whom I'm well pleased." We hear that, but there's something else that's added, just like your logo, transforming lives into faithful discipleship. We hear God saying, listen to him. If we were to hear that with ears and hearts, where could that lead this church? We have Peter's response. I chose a number of images today because quite often we can't express some of these ineffable explanations for some of these amazing stories that we have in the Bible. I'm not here as a biblical literalist who will say that this is exactly what happened, but it's a story we sit with and we wrestle with within our own lives. It's a story that creative artists have wrestled with, and thank goodness we have them. What might you be compelled to do if you witnessed the Transfiguration? I've never told this story in a public venue before, so bear with me. It's one that my closest friends and family know, and I've struggled with whether to tell this story, but I think it's a good one for today. When I was in grade 12, in June, I was facing exams, and we had just finished a poetry section of our English class. And our teacher said, okay, we've got a couple days here. Here are a whole bunch of poems, a number from local artists. Let's just read through them. Okay, everybody's going to take a poem and we're just going to read. and just sit with it. The whole class will be poetry reading. I like poems, but I hadn't really paid much attention to them before, but I decided, okay, you know what, we're exam crazy. This might be a good time to just sort of relax and have a kind of a bird class. So I sat back and listened. About 3/4 the way through the class, somebody read a poem by Alden Nolan. I don't know if any of you know Alden Nolan, but he hails from Windsor and New Brunswick. He was a man who was not educated in the formal sense of the word, lied a little bit on his resume, became an editor, and a really famous local artist. He had written a poem called Aunt Jane. I won't read you the poem today, but I'll tell you that when the voice began, I had something happen to me. The story the poem talks about was a child who lived with her Aunt Jane, or his Aunt Jane. And he had to keep going up to feed this old woman who did not know him, could not express to him who he was, who she was, yet he fed her. And the poem ended. And I can show you by sitting here what I had to do. I had to grab onto my chair, and it lifted. And my body lifted out of my chair, and I had to hold on to it to ground myself in that classroom. I had an overwhelmingly strong urge to go visit my great-grandmother, Ella, who was across town in an old age home. My great-grandmother, Ella, was blind and deaf and laying in a nursing home without being able to express who she was or who we were for years. And we as a family did the obligatory Thanksgiving and Christmas visits and Easter visits, so I hadn't seen her since Easter. And I felt the only way I could say is her call to me. So as soon as that day was done, I flattened my books together, I threw them in my locker, I got into the little Chevette that my father had bought us teenagers to drive around in. I went across town and I ran up and I walked into her room and I said, "I'm here, Grandma, I'm here." And she sighed. And I held her hand and we talked. And the next day at school, my teacher said, "Guess what? I'm going to tell you what one of the questions on your exam will be. It will be, please describe the responsibility of an artist to its listeners or to its, with regards to poetry. What is the responsibility of an artist to their reader?" Well, I said, one thing is to make you feel if you hear something like the beautiful music we heard today. That's a very other thing to be actually having to hold yourself in your seat and to encourage somebody to act in faithful discipleship for a call that you can't explain where or why it came from. I don't try to explain it. It might have just been my heart responding to the needs of my grandmother. But I did it. So I thought to myself, how am I going to answer this exam question? Oh, I fretted. It was 2 days till the exam. And I wrote, and I was not having a good time with it. I threw it away, and I rewrote again, and I threw it away, and I said, okay, I'm going to go talk to my great-grandmother again. I'm going to go visit her and see if I can have some more inspiration. So I went to visit her that second day. That day she was feeling like I felt. She was reeling in her bed. And I cried, "Jesus, why don't you let her see her angels that she so faithfully believed in?" And I heard her say, "Let me die." I stayed with her, I brushed her hair, And in my pocket, this is the weird thing. This is what I wasn't sure if I was going to share. But anyway. In my pocket, I had a photo camera. And it was one of those Polaroid cameras. And I thought for my response, I would do a before and after sort of picture and then describe how it felt to me that I had lost my grandmother before she died, but that the call was amazing and that it didn't matter if she was in bed or if she was up talking to me, telling me stories, rocking me. She was still my grandmother who I loved. So I took this picture. And I waited, shaking it and waiting. And it started to form, and it was white. There was the shadow outline of my grandmother in the bed, just slightly, but it was just brilliant white light. So I started to shake, like Peter and James and John. I felt, I must have redid the settings, so I turned it way down so that the exposure level was really low. And I said, okay, Grandma, I'm going to try this again. And so I took a picture. And I waited. And she wasn't there in the picture. There was just the white glare of the white sheets. I got down and I cried and I said, I'm sorry, Grandma. I said, I didn't need to take these pictures. So I shoved them in my book bag. And I talked a bit more with her, and then I went home. I didn't tell anybody about this. Just like Jesus said, don't tell anybody about these experiences until you see that I've risen. The next day was my exam. It was at 11 when I finished writing. And I wrote about my grandmother and all the memories that I had, and I wrote about Alden Nolan's responsibility to me as a reader, and how thankful I was. And it ended up being a eulogy to my grandmother. And when I finally put that pencil down on the desk, an overwhelming sense of peace and love and joy came over me, and I went home. I drove up to the door, walked up just going, whew, that's been just the most tremendous couple days of my life. My book bag over my shoulder. And my brother Jamie opened the door with tears pouring down his face. And he said, we just got the call from the long-term care center. Grandma died. The exact time I put my pencil on my desk. Talk about transformational moments. I hear little things every now and then going into the career and the vocation that I'm going into. A lot of those moments are incredibly personal, something that maybe we don't share very often. But Jesus said, get up, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid when you experience things in your life, whether it's a mundane event like an AGM, where you can just sit there and open your heart to the Holy Spirit in your life to guide your decisions as a church, or whether it's something tremendous like that for me that changed my life and changed my understanding of what is not that we can see. An embracing of the mysterious. I remember one of my very first time preaching Transformation Sunday. I was working with another minister, not you, Stephen, and she said, I'm so glad that you've got this Sunday. And I said, really? Why is that? And she said, because I don't like preaching this one. She said, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to explain what the story says. And just kind of accept. And she said, I'm glad you've got it. And it made me think, why was I not uncomfortable preaching on that Sunday? And I think it's because of that event that happened to me when I was 17 that allowed me to say I can embrace the mystical. I can be part of mystic moments and not to be afraid. The next part is the listening. The challenge after encountering God with courage and fear. The challenge is, how will that metamorphosis affect us? How will we sit with that illumination in this end of the season of Epiphany and celebrate all the revelations that come to us, big or small? In our resources, I saw this prayer and I thought I would end with it. With a vision of Peter in sculpture behind us. O mystery, O Holy One, may our hearts be still. May our souls be porous to absorb your divine grace. May we hear, feel, and understand the words that quench our burning desire. My beloved,